Okay, I want to do a little quick review just to show people who are curious what these little nifty looking EDC scissors that you can get from various companies, including I think DealExtreme and Banggood, are kind of like in real life. I mean, they look really slick. Obviously they're very spiff looking. It's a nice design because it's compact. And it looks really nice. You're not in any danger of hurting yourself with these things. And they open up with this really cool pull pin action. They spring open. They are spring loaded, so they open on their own. And you would think that looking at these things that these are actually really kind of a nice design, but unfortunately I'm not really finding that for myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare them against these old standby kind of folding scissors that have probably been in your grandmother's sewing kit. They've had these around for at least 40 years. You can pick them up at like sewing supply stores or drugstores or department stores or even grocery stores sometimes in the sewing section. So when you look at these kinds of things, and these are a simpler design, they're just bent metal, and you do have to unfold them. They're bulkier when you put them together, and they don't look nearly as cool. I mean, they do look kind of cheap and inexpensive, and they just don't have that cool I'm an EDC carrying geek and I'm all prepared look about them. But they do have one thing that these fancier looking scissors do not have, and that is the loops for your thumb and your finger. So just to do a little bit of a comparison here, I'm going to grab just some post-it note paper. I'm going to take two thicknesses here. So yeah, it's purple post-it notes. Alright, so I'm going to take these and take these and unfold them, and you want to cut it. And so you take them and you can open up the you can put pressure on the scissors in both directions, open and closed. So you can open it up, you can get some decent pressure, and you can get some leverage on here, right? You don't see it, but you can actually tense up your hand like that, such that, and they don't go anywhere. So you can move your fingers and put pressure on these scissors as appropriate to do some relatively substantial cutting jobs. When you take the fancy guys here, and you kind of got to hold them like this. Like, first thing you want to do is hold it by your fingertips. But when you push down on them, they want to twist. You can't get a lot of pressure on it. So you're pushing down and you're trying to cut with it. And you're finding that your fingers are not really having a successful time holding these things straight because you're spending a lot of your effort holding them straight and not pushing down on them in order to cut it. So then you start doing this. You try to kind of capture that with your finger and shove down with your thumb, but your finger gets in the way right there. You can't push down on it because you're going to jam it into your own finger, and it's kind of going to be uncomfortable. So then you're kind of relegated to doing this, and you're trying to do this, and yes, you can make them work, but you don't get as good a stroke, you don't get as good a control, and they are just generally more awkward. And this is with just a couple of pieces of paper. If you try to cut anything that's even more substantial than this, and I'm just going to take this pen as a ludicrous example, you push down on it, and what's going to happen is this thing's going to try to twist away from you. I've found that in cutting relatively soft materials, it does not do a good job, like on this Bankruptcy. It may cut it, or it may kind of fold through it like that. Depending, if you don't get it exactly straight, then you get this thing where it's not cutting, it's pinching it. That's not too terribly useful. Whereas with this guy, I don't think you get this same kind of effect. I mean, you can get enough pressure on the blades so you can turn it virtually parallel to the paper and it'll still cut. And so these ones are actually better scissors at the end of the day. They're not fancy and they're not expensive and they don't look like very much. You could even argue that they look cheap or whatever, but they are compact. There's no danger of you're putting a hole in yourself with them, and they're not going to spring open on you or anything. And they do work, whereas these fancy looking guys, although it's a really slick looking design, yeah, they're just not as overall useful as real scissors compared to the old bent metal kind. So I'm not actually carrying these guys with me right now. I do keep a pair of these in my pocket along with some other really teeny tools that I use all the time. And these are the ones that I pull out virtually every other day, it seems like, because I'm finding that although these ones you can get them for a couple of dollars on the direct from China sites, they just don't work as well.